Hi there, folks. I am going to be moving. I just finished chapter 8 with y'all, and I'm going to move straight on to chapter 9. I thought 8 was really interesting, not nearly as hard to be reading as the Civil War stuff, right? This is called One Price for Everybody. Meanwhile, other go-getters were inventing ways to attract the new millions of city customers. The big stores that now grew up in American cities were as different from the little shops in London's West End as the grand new American hotels were different from the modest old world inns. The new American hotels were people's palaces. Anybody could meet his friends in the elegant lobby, or if he had the money, could entertain in a dining room with a crystal chandelier. The new department stores were buyers' palaces, and they too were democratic, means for all people. In London, nobody got into elegant shops. Oh, democratic. Not sure exactly what that means there. Let's keep reading and see what that means. In London, nobody got into elegant shops unless they looked like a gentleman or ladies. Unless the shopkeeper knew who you were, he would not let you in. You had to be a person of quality, as the upper classes were called, to see the goods of quality. Okay, so in London, that's what I thought. In London, they were like, you're not up to snuff. You can't come in. But department stores changed all this. Suddenly, there were vast buyers' palaces, some large enough to fill a whole city block, specially designed to display goods of every shape, price, and description. Anyone could come in. Now everybody could have a close look at elegant jewelry, clothing, and furniture of the kind once reserved for the eyes of the rich. That's why it's a democracy, right? Anybody, they're calling it that. Anybody can do it. Like many other American achievements, this happened quickly. English ways of selling had not changed much in 500 years, but this department store revolution, which began shortly before the Civil War, changed the lives of American customers within a few decades. Stuart's Cast Iron Palace, completed in 1862 in New York City, was one of the first big department stores. It was the product of two different kinds of go-getters, a businessman and an inventor. A.T. Stewart, the merchant who built up the business, came to the United States from Ireland at the age of 17. He started by selling the Irish laces he had brought with him, but he soon branched out into all kinds of goods. He was a bold, ambitious businessman, and he decided to spend a fortune on an enormous building in an entirely new style. When Stewart decided to build his grand new store, he picked an inventing genius who was sure to try something new. Oh, wow. Look at this. Look at this buyer's palace they have the picture of there on 62 and 63. Man, that thing is crazy. It's like a museum. You can just go into room after room after room. Kind of like our malls from today, right? James Bogardus, the man Stewart chose, had started as a watchmaker's apprentice in upstate New York. An apprentice is someone who's training under someone. So like a watchmaker has a little younger guy there and he's teaching him everything. He first became famous by his new design for an 8-day clock. I don't know what that means, an 8-day clock. I'll see if I can look up what an 8-day clock is. I haven't heard of that before. I don't think it's in my notes. So I'll try to look that up. Then he invented all kinds of new machines for making cotton thread, for mixing lead paint, for grinding sugar, for metering gas, and for engraving postage stamps. He patented a metal case pencil with a lead that was forever pointed. I wonder why we still don't have that one. His most important new idea was to construct buildings of cast iron. Bogardus' own 5-story factory, built in 1850, that's before the Civil War, was probably the first cast iron building in America. The building Bogardus built for Stewart overwhelmed everybody at the time. It was so tall, 8 stories. It quickly became famous as the biggest store in the world. Bogardus used cast iron to make an impressive buyer's palace. The outside looked palatial and dignified. Graceful columns held up thin beams. They made a neat repeating pattern like that found in old-world palaces. The molded iron panels between columns were painted to resemble stone. Fancy cast iron shapes decorated the window frames. On the ground floor, the outside walls no longer needed to be thick, as they had to be when a tall building was made of stone. Now there could be larger windows on every floor. Slender iron columns held up the high ceiling of display rooms, a city block wide. You guys kind of know what a city block is if you're downtown in Greenville. That's about the length of a city block. It's pretty gigantic if it was one store on the city block, right? A grand central staircase and a great rotunda reaching up to the full height of the building made the ground floor even more palatial. Palatial means like a palace. A glass roof topped the rotunda, and sunlight streamed through it. You could enjoy long indoor vistas of appealing merchandise: gloves, umbrellas, suitcases, coats, furniture, all kinds of things in all shapes, sizes, and colors. All the people in the building who were busy looking, buying, admiring helped to make a splendid spectacle. And you got to imagine, before this, right, these people had never been in rich people's places. They'd never been in fancy stores before. Naturally, the go-getting department store keepers wanted to display their goods to everyone who walked down the street. The thin cast iron building frames made this easier, but it would not have been possible without a new kind of window. Before the age of the department stores, glass was expensive. Windows had to be small, and they admitted a little daylight, and then they let you look out. But then, not long before the Civil War, an Englishman invented an inexpensive way of rolling out glass in large sheets. These large sheets of glass now at last made possible the show window. You guys have seen those, right? When you go by stores, the whole thing is a window. Americans invented this new expression for the new kind of window that was made to look into. Now the goods could advertise themselves. In a store where thousands of customers were buying and hundreds of people were selling, other things had to change. The old ways of selling goods was for the storekeeper to bargain with each customer separately. He did not mark a price on the goods. Instead, he asked from each customer the highest price he thought that he could get. The price depended upon how rich he thought the customer was, on how much he thought the customer wanted the goods, and on how anxious he was to make a sale at the time. You could never be sure in advance how much you would have to pay. If you were a good bargainer, you could get it for less. But bargaining took time. It did not suit Americans in a hurry. The big department store brought the age of the fixed price, which is what we know today, right? In Turkey, it's not like that at all. When I lived in Turkey, we would, I would look at an item. First of all, I would make sure to tell the shopkeeper. I would make sure to first tell the shopkeeper when I walked in. First of all, I'd say merhaba, and he'd say, that means hello, and I'd say nasılsın. He'd say, how are you? I'd say, iyiyim, teşekkür ederim. Good, thank you. Sen nasılsın? How are you? He would say, iyiyim, teşekkür ederim. And then I would say, sadece kayboldum, right? Which is, I'm only looking. I'm only looking here. Don't pressure me. I'm only looking. Sadece kayboldum. And he would say, okay. They did a lot, right? Just looking. And then I might say, I like this. It's çok güzel. Very good. Very good rug. And he would say, evet, yes, good, beautiful carpet. And I would say, how much is this carpet? Which I'm trying to remember how I said how much. Gosh, I can't remember how I would ask how much it was. I can't remember my phrase for how much it was. Anyways, I'd ask how much the carpet was, and he would say, let's say he would say, iki lira, okay? Which is $2, let's say. Let's make it more expensive than that, right? That's not much fun. Let's say 20 lira, $20. And I would say, oh, no, that's too much. And he would say, oh, okay. And so I would say, ondokus lira, which is 19 lira. And then he would think about it, right? And we'd bargain back and forth. That's how you did it all the time in Turkey. I mean, if you were in a grocery store, you'd pay the set price, right? But if you were going into any shop, they would expect you to bargain with them. Americans don't like to do this very much. But now we have the fixed price, okay? A.T. Stewart's cast iron palace employed 2,000 people. Stewart himself could not know all his sales clerks. How could he let them bargain for him? At Stewart's then, everything carried a price tag. Everyone could see the price, and it was the same price for all. When you went shopping now, you could no longer get your fun from bargaining, but you got a better value, and there were new experiences to enjoy, like looking at all the elegant things you could not afford. The department store was a new, very American and very democratic kind of entertainment where the admission was free. You were just going there for free. I do this for free. Isn't that awesome? So that's chapter 9. And I don't think there's anything major I need to tell you about chapter 9, but I did want to point out to Zoe that there's a few timeline items. Sears, Roebuck and Company were going to publish their first catalog in 1893. Alexander Turney Stewart establishes the first department store in America in 1846. And James Bogardus builds with cast iron in 1850. All right, so that's all from chapter 9. Not too long of a chapter there.